Chapter 1. Old Habits Die Hard. Internally, Artemis winced and wished the boy could at least pretend to be sorry. But no, that would make too much sense. There he stood, meeting the harsh glare Keeper Orland was giving him, his jaw set in that infuriating scowl. "Mr. Brown," Orland said, almost hissing through his clenched teeth, "we do realize your upbringing, that you have lived for the most part without supervision, but you must understand that theft will not be tolerated within our walls." "Then it's not my fault, sir," Garrett answered innocently. "Pardon?" Orland narrowed his eyes. "Well, considering my upbringing, young man, I will not tolerate sarcasm." "I wasn't being sarcastic. All I'm saying is that I can't help it, sir." "You will help it, Mr. Brown, and you will mark my words when I say that your behavior had better improve, or..." "My behavior?" "Oh," thought Artemis. "Here it comes. I'm not the one who was waving his stupid little trinket around. Do not try and pass the blame wholly onto Aloysius, young man. He deserved it." Garrett was nearly shrieking now, his gray eyes glittering with all the rage and indignation a 12-year-old boy could muster. "That is enough, Garrett Brown." Orland was angry too, but his was a quiet, infinitely more frightening angry. Any sensible child would have lowered his eyes in obedient shame, but Garrett wasn't a sensible child, and he fixed Orland with a defiant stare. After a tense second or so, it seemed like an age to Artemis, of fiery glaring, Orland tore his eyes away from the boy and turned to Artemis, his anger reined in, but still apparent. "Keeper Artemis, as his mentor, I leave the matter of chastisement to you. I will see to Aloysius." Artemis nodded impassively at his colleague and, taking Garrett firmly by the shoulder, steered the boy out of Orland's office. He released him as soon as the door was closed behind them and started down the hall at a brisk walk, already knowing that Garrett would follow. As soon as they reached the privacy of Artemis's own study, the keeper held Garrett with an iron gaze. "Well, I hope you gained something from that," Artemis said stiffly. "But it wasn't my fault!" "That will be discussed later. For now, I want you to understand exactly what you have done," he continued, as though he hadn't heard the boy. Garrett snorted. "I know what I did, and..." "I'm fully aware of that," Artemis sighed, and resisted the urge to massage his throbbing temples. "But you do not fully understand the implications of what you have done. Sit down." "So I pissed off that old..." "Sit." Garrett sat. Artemis himself took his own chair beside his desk. "Garrett..." He rested his fingertips on the desktop and tried to find the correct words. "First of all, I need you to tell me exactly what happened." "I took Aloysius's little pendant thing and we got in a fight," Garrett said huffily. "No, what I mean is, please tell me what happened this morning, as it happened to you, in your own words." Artemis steepled his fingers and tried to look benevolent. Truth be told, he was as angry at his young charge as Orland was, but overt anger never solved anything. It was better to keep your balance, as to assess the situation calmly. "Well, Aloysius has this pendant, and yesterday he was waving it around saying how valuable it was, and I asked if I could take a look, just so I could see the designs better, and he said I couldn't, and I asked why not, and he said because..." Here Garrett's face darkened with remembered fury. He said that I might get my street filth all over it. I see, murmured Artemis, sympathizing a little with the boy. Aloysius Kosygin was a recruit from a wealthy family whose head was an ally for the Keepers. Artemis had no opinion of Aloysius, other than he had to be broken of his superiority complex. So then what happened? Well, last night I snuck over to Aloysius's room and took it. Garrett smirked, feeling a bit proud of what he thought was a major accomplishment. Why? Artemis inquired in his measured tones. Garrett furrowed his eyebrows. He hadn't been expecting this. Why did he even ask, when the answer was clear enough? He did it because... well, why did he do it? I guess I thought it would make him think twice about making fun of me. Garrett, you've been taking lessons with the same group as Aloysius for several weeks, yes? Yeah. Can you tell me about him? He's an idiot, the boy snapped. Garrett, Artemis warned. Garrett rolled his eyes. I mean, he's really loud. And you're not, thought Artemis. And he's always bossing the other students around and gets pissed off real easy. Artemis decided to ignore the mild swearing for the moment and get to the point. Garrett, knowing this, how did you think Aloysius was going to react when he realized that his pendant was missing, and when you told him, in no uncertain terms, so I have heard, that you had stolen it? Did you think he would apologize for his rudeness? Garrett dropped his gaze and his face went pink. I don't know. The point is, Garrett, Artemis stated, choosing his words carefully, it's not that you didn't know. It's that you didn't think. Garrett opened his mouth, probably to let loose some acid retort, but his mentor stopped him with a hand. You are a smart lad, Garrett, but you rarely think about the consequences of your actions. Every action you take in life will have a reaction, and you need to decide if you can cope with that reaction. If you steal something, you must be aware that someone is going to be very angry. Then you must decide if it is really very wise to be engaging in theft at all. Do you understand? Artemis eyed the boy, trying to gauge his response, but Garrett's eyes were closed off to his probing. In a rare show of difference, Garrett bowed his head and answered with a quiet, "Yes, sir." Later, Artemis sentenced Garrett to an afternoon of shoveling out the stables at the back of the compound. Garrett predictably groaned and balked, but it wasn't his usual defiance that Artemis would look back on years down the road. Rather, he would remember the strange look in Garrett's eyes while he contemplated Artemis's lecturing. It was a stillness and a coldness Artemis had never seen before, almost like a hunter unfeelingly dressing his kill. In retrospect, he never would have guessed he'd be seeing that look more and more often as the boy called Garrett Brown grew into manhood.